In the fall of 1671, in the quiet, God-fearing town of Groton, Massachusetts, life was a cycle of prayer, hard work, and survival. The world was small, bound by the edges of the forest and the word of the Lord. For 16-year-old Elizabeth Knapp, a servant in the household of the Reverend Samuel Willard, each day was much like the last, until one October evening, when something broke the familiar rhythm of her life. It began subtly, a sudden outburst of laughter that would just as quickly turn to weeping. Moments of distraction, her eyes fixed on something no one else could see. The Willard family, concerned, initially dismissed it as the melancholy humors common in young women. But Elizabeth's condition didn't improve. It worsened, spiraling into something far more terrifying. Reverend Willard, a man of faith but also of reason, began documenting her strange affliction in his journal. He noted her fits of violent shrieking, where she would cry out in a voice that was not her own. Her body would contort, twisting into unnatural shapes, as if an invisible force were wringing her like a cloth. She would complain of being choked and pinched by unseen hands. Willard wrote, she would sometimes be as if she were in a trance, lying still, with her eyes fast closed, for a considerable time. And then, coming to herself, would relate strange visions of she knew not what. The community was gripped by a chilling fear. Was it sickness, or something darker? A physician was called in to examine Elizabeth. He observed her closely, noting the convulsions and the strange guttural sounds that escaped her lips. He tried remedies, poultices and prayers, but nothing worked. The medical knowledge of the 17th century was powerless against the torment that had seized the young girl. Her symptoms defied every known illness. During her moments of clarity, a terrified Elizabeth would describe her tormentor. She claimed a shadowy figure had appeared to her, first offering riches and comfort, then turning to threats when she refused. This entity, she said, was the devil, and he had promised her a life free from servitude if she would only pledge her soul to him. Willard documented one harrowing exchange. She cried out, "You are a rogue, you are a devil. I will not believe you. You are a liar," though we that were by could see nothing. The Reverend and his family would hold vigils, praying over Elizabeth day and night, their voices a constant shield against the encroaching darkness. They witnessed her speaking in languages she had never learned, revealing secrets about townspeople she couldn't possibly know. The fits grew more violent. Elizabeth would thrash so powerfully that it took several strong men to hold her down. She would bark like a dog, hiss like a cat, and once she tried to throw herself into the roaring fireplace. During these episodes, her physical strength was extraordinary, far beyond that of a 16-year-old girl. The physician, at a loss, eventually stepped back. He confessed to Reverend Willard that her ailment was beyond the reach of his art. The diagnosis shifted from the physical to the spiritual. The consensus grew. Elizabeth Knapp was not sick. She was possessed. The question then became, how did this happen? The Puritans believed that the devil was a real and present danger, always seeking a foothold in their godly society. They looked for a cause, a crack in the spiritual armor. Had Elizabeth engaged in fortune-telling? Had she harbored sinful thoughts? Elizabeth herself provided a possible answer. In a moment of lucidity, she confessed that a neighbor had approached her, attempting to lure her into witchcraft, but she had refused. Later, in the throes of another fit, she would recant this, claiming the devil had forced her to lie and accuse an innocent woman. The community was thrown into confusion. Who was telling the truth? Elizabeth, or the entity speaking through her? Reverend Willard, ever the careful observer, resisted the urge to leap to conclusions. He was wary of the hysteria that could so easily ignite a witch hunt. He focused instead on prayer and counsel, trying to guide Elizabeth back to the light. He spoke with her for hours, challenging the entity that claimed her, debating scripture and theology with the darkness itself. He recorded the entity's mocking words. It told her she was a poor, miserable, foolish, and silly creature to refuse his offers. The voice would taunt Willard directly, questioning his faith and his ability to save the girl. It was a battle of wills, fought in the flickering candlelight of a small cabin at the edge of the known world. For nearly 3 months, this spiritual war raged within the Willard household. The family lived in a state of constant tension, never knowing when the next terrifying episode would begin. The sounds from their home became a source of dread for the entire town of Groton. Then, as suddenly as it began, the affliction started to recede. The fits became less frequent, less violent. The strange voices quieted. By January of 1672, Elizabeth Knapp was calm. She was exhausted, weak, and emotionally scarred, but she was herself again. She returned to her duties, a shadow of her former self, forever marked by the ordeal. She later married and moved away, fading from the historical record. The detailed journal of Reverend Samuel Willard remains the primary account of her terrifying experience. So what truly happened to Elizabeth Knapp? Was she the victim of a genuine demonic possession, a spiritual assault by the forces of darkness? Or was she suffering from a severe, undiagnosed neurological or psychological condition, like epilepsy or schizophrenia, misinterpreted through the lens of 17th century religious belief? Modern medicine might offer explanations that were unavailable to the physician who attended her. But even today, the sheer extremity of her symptoms, the unnatural strength, the knowledge of things she shouldn't have known, the distinct personalities she exhibited defies easy categorization. The case of Elizabeth Knapp is a chilling reminder of a time when the lines between the spiritual and the physical were blurred, when the forest at the edge of town held not just wild animals but the terrors of the unseen world. Her story remains a profound mystery, a haunting echo from the past that asks a question we still cannot definitively answer. What was it that held Elizabeth Knapp in its grasp? The answer, perhaps, lies in the shadows, just beyond the reach of our understanding. Thank you for watching. If you find these historical mysteries as fascinating as we do, please consider subscribing for more stories from the dark corners of the past.